The screen flickered to life, casting a cold blue glow across my face in the darkened study. My heart thudded, a traitor's rhythm, as grainy footage from the living room filled the monitor. I hadn't meant to watch, hadn't meant to install the cameras at all, really. It was a paranoid whim, born in the sleepless haze after a string of late-night arguments with Elise. Her phone buzzing at odd hours. Her distracted glances. The way she'd started locking her laptop. I told myself it was for security, a precaution against break-ins, but the lie tasted sour even then. Now, as I sat hunched over my desk, the timestamp on the footage read 2:14 a.m., and Elise was not in bed beside me. She was downstairs on our couch, her silhouette curled against someone else. The air in the study felt thick, heavy with the scent of old books and stale coffee. My fingers trembled as I adjusted the volume, the faint hum of the footage crackling through the speakers. I shouldn't be doing this. I should storm downstairs, confront her, demand answers. But my body felt anchored, my eyes glued to the screen, where Elise's hand rested on a stranger's knee. The stranger's face was obscured, turned away from the camera hidden in the bookshelf, but the intimacy of their posture. Her head tilted toward his shoulder, his arm draped loosely around her, clawed at my chest. My breath hitched, sharp and ragged, as if the air had turned to glass. I'd installed the cameras 3 weeks ago, after Elise came home late from a work dinner, smelling faintly of whiskey and cologne. She'd laughed off my questions, her hazel eyes bright but evasive, and I'd let it go. Or tried to. The doubt had festered, a slow poison seeping into every quiet moment. I'd hidden the cameras in a frenzy of guilt and suspicion. One in the living room, tucked behind a photo frame. Another in the kitchen, nestled in the potted basil. A third in the hallway, disguised as a smoke detector. I told myself I'd check them once, just to ease my mind, then delete the footage. But I never told Elise. And now, here I was, watching my wife betray me in our own home. The footage shifted as Elise leaned closer to the stranger, her lips moving. I strained to hear, my pulse hammering in my ears. The audio was faint, her voice a soft murmur, but I caught fragments. Can't keep doing this, feels wrong. My stomach twisted. Wrong? Was it guilt she felt, or just the thrill of sneaking around? The stranger's voice was lower, a muffled rumble, and I couldn't make out his words. But his hand moved to her cheek, a gesture so tender it felt like a blade slicing through me. I wanted to scream, to smash the monitor, but my body refused to move. Instead, I leaned closer, as if the screen could explain why my marriage was unraveling. The past month replayed in my mind like a montage of warning signs I'd ignored. Elise's late nights at the office, her phone face down on the counter, the way she'd flinch when I touched her unexpectedly. I'd rationalized it all. Stress from her promotion, long hours, maybe even my own paranoia pushing her away. We'd been married 7 years, built a life of cozy Sunday mornings, and shared dreams of a cabin in the mountains. But lately, our home felt like a stage, each of us playing roles we no longer believed in. I'd thought the cameras would prove me wrong, show me Elise reading a book or sipping tea alone. Instead, they'd captured this. On the screen, Elise stood, her movements restless, pacing the living room in her oversized sweater. The stranger followed, his frame tall and lean, his face still hidden. My mind raced, trying to place him. A coworker? A friend? I thought of Mark, her colleague who'd lingered too long at our last dinner party, his laughter too loud, his eyes too fixed on her. Or maybe it was someone new, someone I'd never met. The not knowing burned worse than the betrayal itself. I clicked to another camera, the kitchen feed, but it was empty, the stainless steel fridge gleaming coldly under the moonlight. Elise, I whispered to the empty room, my voice breaking. I wanted to believe there was an explanation, something innocent. Maybe this was a friend in crisis, a late-night confidant. But the way her hand had lingered on his knee, the way his fingers brushed her cheek, it wasn't platonic. It was a language of intimacy I thought belonged only to us. My chest ached with a cocktail of emotions, rage, heartbreak, and a sick curiosity that kept me glued to the screen. What would they do next? Would they kiss? Would they? I couldn't finish the thought. The footage cut to the hallway camera as they moved toward the stairs. My heart stopped. Were they coming upstairs? I froze, listening for the creak of the floorboards, but the house was silent except for the hum of my computer. On the screen, Elise paused at the foot of the stairs, her hand on the banister. She turned to the stranger, her voice clearer now. We need to stop. He's starting to notice. My blood ran cold. She was talking about me. The stranger stepped closer, his face still maddeningly out of frame, and murmured something. Elise shook her head, her expression torn, guilt, fear, maybe even love. I can't, she said, her voice cracking. Not anymore. I wanted to feel vindicated, to let anger overtake the hurt, but all I felt was a hollow ache. She knew it was wrong. She felt guilt. But she hadn't stopped, not until now. And why? Because I was starting to notice? The realization hit like a punch. My suspicion had pushed her to this moment, but it hadn't started it. This had been going on long enough for her to build a secret life, one I'd been too blind, or too trusting, to see. The stranger reached for her, but she stepped back, her shoulders tense. Go, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Please. He hesitated, then nodded, slipping out of frame toward the front door. The camera caught the soft click of the lock, and then he was gone. Elise stood alone, her hands covering her face, her body shaking. Was she crying? Relief? I couldn't tell. Part of me wanted to run to her, to hold her and demand answers. Another part wanted to stay hidden, to keep watching, to let the cameras reveal the rest of her secrets. I switched back to the living room feed, rewinding to study her face before the stranger arrived. She'd been alone, scrolling her phone, her expression unreadable. Had she been waiting for him? Planning this? The timestamp showed she'd been up for hours, long after I'd gone to bed. My mind spiraled, piecing together every late night, every vague excuse. How long had this been happening? How many lies had I swallowed? The study door creaked open, and I nearly knocked the monitor over. Elise stood in the doorway, her face pale in the dim light, her eyes red-rimmed. You're awake, she said, her voice small, almost fragile. I scrambled to close the footage, my hands clumsy, but her gaze flicked to the screen. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air crackled with unspoken questions, with the weight of what I'd seen. I couldn't sleep, I said, the words tasting like ash. Her lips parted, as if to explain, but no sound came. She looked at me, really looked, and I saw it. The flicker of guilt, the fear of being caught. My heart screamed to confront her, to demand who he was, why she'd done this. But my voice faltered, trapped by the cowardice that had led me to the cameras in the first place. Instead, I turned back to the screen. The footage paused on her tear-streaked face from moments ago. I forgot to tell you, I said, my voice low, trembling with a rage I couldn't fully unleash. I installed cameras. For security. Her breath caught, her eyes widening, and in that moment, I knew she understood. The truth was out, but not the way I'd expected. The cameras hadn't just exposed her. They'd exposed me too. My paranoia, my distrust, my willingness to watch her life unravel in secret. And as she stood there, frozen, I realized the betrayal wasn't just hers. It was ours.